So let's focus on this tremendous statement that man is a political animal. I would, of course, interpret that as meaning human beings in general. All of us are political animals. Don't know if Aristotle would agree um, with me, but I think it's true. But what does he mean by that? Um, well, he's trying to understand what the state, what I think he would have called the polis. The polis was what we would translate as city or city state, actually. But the political community, you and I, if you're American, you're part of my political. We were in the same political community. If you come from another country, obviously you're a member of a different political community. But some community which shares, I don't know what you'd say, definitely shares acknowledgement of a single legitimate government, shares a set of laws, and beyond that, maybe customs and ideas and culture, but that's more controversial. Where does that come from is what he wants to know. Uh, and that's what he starts doing in the beginning of part 2, when he says, he who thus considers things in their first growth and origin, whether a state or anything else, will obtain the clearest view of them. So he wants to sort of trace, at least in his imagination, where the political community comes from. How does it emerge? And he says it emerges out of these simpler, smaller forms of human association, what he calls the union of male and female, the family, the household, which is something distinct from the family, the oikos, the household, which could include servants and slaves, as we very quickly find out. And that the household, when it gets larger, kind of becomes the village. And then an association of villages becomes the state. And as he says in the bottom page 2, when several villages are united in a complete community, large enough to be nearly or quite self-sufficing, the state comes into existence, originating in the bare needs of life and continuing in existence for the sake of a good life. And the idea is that it's only when human beings associate together in a political sense, laws, institutions, government, that the sort of perfect or completed form of individual human life becomes possible. And that's why he says what he does, that it is evident that the state is a creation of nature, and that man is by nature a political animal. And he's saying something very sort of striking there, and that is that, the idea that human beings are political animals is the idea that they are meant to live in the polis. And the polis is the state, the political community, that the political community is not an artificial thing, it's a natural thing. Because he says, well, the union of male and female is natural. And then the family comes out of it as natural. And then the village that builds up around the family is natural. So the next stage, the polis, which is an association of villages, is natural. So he sees each of these sort of forms of social life building on the one before, or evolving naturally out of the one before. So each of them is natural. So the state, government, law, he sees as a natural thing. And it's just a development, let's say, of human nature. And that human beings are political animals insofar as they are meant to live in a state, in a fully developed political community. And that this is really what they're meant to do. So that's why he says in the last paragraph, the state is by nature clearly prior to the family and to the individual, since the whole is of necessity prior to the part. He doesn't mean prior in time. he means basically logically prior, And he starts talking about the parts of the body and how the body as a whole is prior to the hand or the foot, insofar as the hand or the foot only makes sense within the whole of the human body. And he's saying that the human individual only makes sense within the whole of human society. That is, you become an individual because of your activity within the social whole. You are not truly human, let's say, until you're a member of a community, which is really an incredibly interesting thought. And like I said in the last video, it's one of the reasons that I think it's pretty hard not to be ambivalent about Aristotle insofar as he has these real insights alongside these really sort of offensive mistakes about slavery and place of women. And, I'm putting these readings out for your personal individual judgment. And, everyone is going to respond to these things in different ways, and you can respond in any way you want. I'm just asking you to read this stuff. But really a kind of an astounding sort of ending here, this sort of vision of human beings sort of completing themselves or completing their nature through their activity within a political community, because they are political animals who are meant to live in such communities. Pretty interesting thought.